If you think the truth hides behind steel and concrete, hit subscribe, and comment before we go any deeper. Because after this, you'll never look America's most secure prison the same way again. The desert wind swept across the razor-wire perimeter of ADX Florence like a whispered threat. Dawn had barely cracked the horizon, yet the sky already burned with a violent orange glow, slicing across the towering walls of the most feared federal prison in the United States. The place whispered about in courtrooms, police stations, and criminal networks around the world. But this morning was different. This morning, a body lay face down in the gravel courtyard between Units Echo and Delta, a place no inmate should ever reach, a supposedly impenetrable kill zone between reinforced steel sets of doors. No alarms had sounded. No guards had witnessed movement. No cameras had tracked anything unusual. And yet, here he was, a man who should have been locked behind a pressure-sealed door, under 23-hour isolation, found dead in a place that should have been impossible to reach. Deputy Warden Elena Ruiz moved quickly across the courtyard, her boots crunching lightly over gravel as two officers lifted the sheet covering the body. Her face stiffened the moment her eyes recognized him. Inmate hashtag 74201V, Victor Hale. Notorious, cunning, dangerous, but not famous, not publicly. His crimes had never been revealed to the media. His file was sealed so deeply that only 6 people in the entire Bureau of Prisons had access to it. Officially, he didn't exist. Unofficially, every guard on B Unit feared him more than the legends locked inside the supermax. Ruiz's jaw tightened as she crouched beside the body. A neat bruise circled the man's throat, too clean, too precise for a struggle. No sign of defensive wounds. No blood. No weapon left behind. Just a bruise. And the silence. "How did he get out of his cell?" she asked sharply. Officer Matheson swallowed. "Ma'am," his cell door was locked. Ruiz looked up. "Locked?" "Yes." Completely sealed. No sign of forced entry. The log shows 0 door cycles between 0200 and 0600. Ruiz rose slowly. Her mind raced. ADX Florence was built to make escape physically impossible. Every movement was tracked, every door monitored, every hallway surveilled. No inmate ever touched another inmate. No inmate ever stepped into an unsupervised space. And certainly not here, the courtyard between the most secure units in America. Matheson extended a trembling hand. "Ma'am, we also found this." A small, folded piece of paper retrieved from the dead inmate's fist. Ruiz unfolded it. Her breath caught. One sentence, written in block lettering. "One of the 10 is lying." She stared at the words as a chill ran down her spine. She knew exactly who the note referred to. A classified list. 10 names. 10 inmates inside ADX Florence whose files were buried deeper than national security documents. Men whose crimes never reached the public. Men whom the world wasn't allowed to know existed. Internally, staff called them the 10. Ruiz whispered, "Who else knows about this note?" "No one," Matheson said. "Just me and Officer Kareem." "Good." Ruiz folded the note and slid it into her pocket. "This stays silent until we understand what we're dealing with." A second officer ran across the courtyard. "Ma'am, Special Agent Rourke just landed. He said you need to meet him immediately." Of course he did. Ruiz thought grimly. The FBI didn't ignore unexplained deaths at ADX, especially not involving one of the 10. She shot one last look at Victor Hale's body before turning away. Something about this didn't sit right. It wasn't the death. It was the message. FBI Special Agent Daniel Rourke waited inside the administrative wing, leaning against a steel support beam like he owned the place. Tall, calm, sharp-eyed, a man built for interrogations but rarely surprised. Ruiz walked in. "You got here fast." "The Bureau doesn't like surprises," Rourke replied, "especially inside a supermax." He nodded toward her pocket. "You found something." She hesitated only a second before handing him the folded note. He read it once, then twice. "One of the 10 is lying," he murmured. "That's specific." Ruiz crossed her arms. "Only 5 staff members besides me know the list exists." "Right," Rourke said. Because the 10 aren't just inmates. They're national security nightmares. He paced slowly. What was Hale's classification? You know I can't disclose that. He looked up. Elena, come on. A long moment passed. Then she spoke quietly. Hale was classified as containment level black, same as the others. Rourke let out a slow exhale. So whoever killed him either breached the most secure cell in the United States, or he never died in that cell to begin with. Ruiz nodded. That's what scares me. Rourke looked through the small glass panel into the operations room, where screens showed every camera feed in ADX. Let me guess, he said. Camera logs are intact. No tampering. Nothing unusual. Ruiz's silence confirmed it. So, Rourke said, we have a man who wasn't supposed to exist, who died in a place he couldn't have reached, holding a message he shouldn't have had. They both knew what that meant. Someone breached ADX's internal security. From the inside, Rourke and Ruiz moved through the facility toward B Unit, the heart of solitary confinement. Each step echoed off concrete walls, as if the prison itself listened. The doors retracted layer by layer. Electronic seals, manual locks, reinforced deadbolts, until the final barrier hissed open. Inside, the unit was quiet. Too quiet. Officer Kareem stood stiffly beside Hale's sealed cell, his eyes avoiding theirs. Open it, Ruiz ordered. Kareem hesitated. Ma'am, I shouldn't. The logs. Open it, she repeated. He finally keyed in the sequence. Metal clanked, hydraulics groaned, and the door slid open. The cell inside was immaculate. Bed neatly made. Desk bolted to the wall. No scratches, no debris, no signs of struggle. But something was wrong. Rourke knelt beside the metal bed frame. There. Look. A faint line of dust was disturbed beneath the bed. A thin, clean streak out of place in the otherwise untouched room. And on the wall behind the bunk, Ruiz's stomach tightened. A faint smear of something dark brown. Too thin for rust. Too deliberate for dirt. Rourke touched it with a gloved fingertip. Dry blood, he said quietly. Not enough for a fight. More like someone marked the wall. There was a shape, a single diagonal slash. Ruiz looked at it closely. It's not a symbol. It's a tally mark. Rourke straightened. A countdown. Or a count up, she whispered. Cammie's face paled. Ma'am, Hale never had anything sharp enough to make that. Not even under supervision. Rourke nodded slowly. Which means someone gave him something. Or, Ruiz said slowly, someone came into the cell, without triggering the system. She turned to Kareem, who was on rotation last night. Kareem hesitated again. Officer, answer the question, Rourke said firmly. Kareem swallowed hard. There was a substitution. Officer Grayson covered the shift. Ruiz stared at him. Grayson retired last year. Kareem's voice cracked. Ma'am, he came back. He said he was authorized. I didn't question it. Ruiz exchanged a long, heavy look with Rourke. Grayson couldn't have come back, because Officer Grayson hadn't retired. He was found dead in his home 6 weeks earlier. Ruiz stepped closer to Kareem. Describe him. Kareem trembled. Tall, gray hair, wore a visitor badge I didn't recognize. But he knew the codes. All of them. Rourke's pulse quickened. Elena, if someone impersonated a federal officer and accessed Hale's cell, they also accessed the rest of the unit. Ruiz finished. Rourke's eyes narrowed. We need to check the other 9 cells. Now. They moved quickly. Cell 2 intact. Cell 3 silent. Cell 4 empty. Ruiz froze. What do you mean empty? Rourke muttered. Officer Kareem shook violently. I swear he was there during count. Ruiz grabbed the keys. Open it. The door slid aside. The bunk was untouched. The sink spotless. The room bare. Completely empty. No body. No inmate. Just a folded piece of paper on the floor. The same handwriting as before. Rourke read it aloud. 9 left. A chill shot through Ruiz's spine. Inmate number 4 of the 10 was gone without a trace. Another impossibility inside a place where impossibilities weren't allowed. Rourke looked at Ruiz, voice low. Someone's hunting them. Ruiz nodded grimly. And whatever these 10 men know, someone is killing to keep it buried. Rourke pocketed the note. We need to lock this prison down. Ruiz nodded and reached for her radio. But before she spoke, a deafening alarm tore through the building. B-unit lights flashed red. Emergency shutters slammed down. And over the intercom, a distorted voice crackled through, deeper than the standard automated announcement. A voice neither of them recognized. You're too late. The truth is already moving. The line cut out, and everything went black. Darkness swallowed the corridors of ADX Florence as the emergency blackout continued. The only light coming from flickering red strips along the baseboards. Backup power meant purely for evacuation, not investigation. Agent Daniel Rourke and Deputy Warden Elena Ruiz stood frozen for half a second, listening to the metallic groans echoing through the concrete labyrinth. Someone had hijacked the prison's internal systems. Ruiz, clench your jaw. This shouldn't be possible. The facility's network is closed. Completely closed. No outside access. No wireless interfaces. Nothing. Rourke's voice was grim, meaning whoever did this is inside the prison. A distant clang echoed up the hallway, sharp, deliberate, almost rhythmic, like someone tapping metal against metal. Ting, ting, ting. Kareem flinched. We need to get to the control center. Ruiz nodded. Stay close. Keep your eyes on everything. They pushed forward through the dim hallway, passing the sealed cell doors. The red lighting made the place feel like the inside of a furnace, hot, claustrophobic, and alive with threat. Rourke kept one hand near his holster. The rules for firearms of supermax were strict, but the blackout protocols had transferred emergency clearance directly to him the moment the alarms triggered. Whatever was coming, he was prepared to meet it. They reached the main intersection of B-Unit, but the reinforced blast doors to the control center were sealed tight. Ruiz typed in her authorization code. The keypad beeped once, then flashed red. Error. Access denied. That makes no sense, Ruiz whispered. Rourke tried his own override. Same result. Error. 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 Ruiz stepped back, breathing hard. These codes cannot be changed. Not even by Washington. They're hardwired. Rourke looked at her. Unless someone bypassed the hardware entirely. He glanced up at the ceiling where a tiny black dome camera hung lifeless. The camera light flicked on for half a second. Bright red. Then off. Then on again. Blinking. Like a signal. Ruiz felt her blood run cold. Do you think someone can see us? Someone definitely sees us, Rourke replied. And they want us to know it. Another metallic clang echoed behind them. Closer now. Ting. 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 Kareem's voice cracked. We need weapons. You have one. Rourke snapped. You're training. Keep it together. Ruiz exhaled slowly, forcing calm. We go to the operations hub on the east side. It's independent of the main control center. If we can access manual power routing. She was cut off by something over the intercom. Static. Then a voice. A human voice. Measured. Calm. Distorted beyond recognition. 2 down. 8 to go. The speaker system cut off with a hiss. Kareem nearly dropped his flashlight. 8 left? That means... Ruiz spoke softly. 2 of the 10 are gone. Hale and the inmate in cell 4. Rourke clenched his fists. He's counting them. Who is? Ruiz snapped. Rourke shook his head. Someone who knows exactly how this prison works. Someone with access that even you don't have. Ruiz looked at the looping red lights. Someone inside the chain of command. They moved through the east corridor, flashlights sweeping across sterile concrete. The silence felt heavier now, coated in an almost suffocating dread. At each door, Ruiz checked the seals. All intact. No signs of tampering. That almost made things worse. Nothing this clean ever stayed clean for long. As they approached the auxiliary operations hub, Rourke noticed something on the wall. A smear of red. He stopped. Blood. Kareem whispered. No, Rourke said. Look closer. Under the flashlight. It wasn't a smear. It was a fingerprint. One. Single. Perfect fingerprint dragged downward in a slow streak. A deliberate mark. Ruiz stepped closer. It's pointing toward the hub. Rourke nodded. He wants us to go in. Kareem swallowed hard. Why would he invite us? Because, Rourke said, he's not afraid of us. Ruiz entered first. The operations hub door slid open without resistance. Too easy. Inside, the room was bathed in a deep red glow from emergency lighting. Rows of dead monitors lined the walls like dark eyes, watching them. A massive breaker unit sat against the far wall, the power routing station. Ruiz moved toward it, tapping in her secondary credentials. This should put us on backup grid. I'll get lights, cameras, doors. Her words stopped abruptly. Rourke saw her freeze. Ruiz, he said softly. What is it? She slowly pointed to the breaker panel. There, hanging from the main power lever, was an inmate ID badge, a badge belonging to one of the 10. Inmate hashtag 74803C. Name, Marcus Venn. Rourke's stomach tightened. Venn is supposed to be in C range. Ruiz shook her head. He is. Or he was. Kareem whispered. That's 3? Ruiz grabbed the badge carefully. Something was written on the back in the same block lettering from the notes. He confessed. Rourke's breath caught. He confessed what? He muttered. Ruiz looked at him. Something none of us were supposed to know. Rourke stepped toward the breaker. Turn it on. Ruiz hesitated. What if it's a trap? It is a trap, Rourke said, but staying blind is worse. She exhaled and pulled the lever. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire prison hummed violently as auxiliary power surged through the systems. Lights flickered, then stabilized. Cameras rebooted. Doors unlocked with heavy clacks. And every monitor in the room lit up, all showing the same feed. A camera inside an empty cell. But this cell wasn't empty. A man sat shackled to floor, head slumped forward, breathing shallowly. One of the 10. Inmate hashtag 75112. A. Elias Ward. Former intelligence analyst turned rogue operative. Classified beyond classified. Another man stood behind him. Tall, gray hair. The same build Kareem had described earlier. The fake Officer Grayson. The imposter. He looked directly into the camera. Then he smiled. Rourke felt a cold wave hit his chest. Whoever he is, he's not hiding anymore. Ruiz leaned closer to the screen. Zoom in. Rourke flicked a switch. The image sharpened. The imposter raised something to the camera. A small metal object. A master key. Ruiz inhaled sharply. That's impossible. That key opens every door in this prison. Rourke's voice was low. He wants us to know he has full control. On screen, the imposter stepped toward the shackled inmate. He crouched and whispered something into Ward's ear, though the microphone was too distorted to capture the words. Ward's eyes widened in terror. Then the imposter stood again and held up his hand. He had written a number across his palm. 4. Rourke whispered. That's not a countdown. Ruiz nodded slowly. It's a score. The lights across the prison flickered again, then stabilized. Then every cell door indicator on the monitor board blinked from red to green. Unlocked. All of them. Kareem took a step back. No, we need to relock. Rourke hit the override commands. Nothing responded. The system was fully hijacked. Ruiz grabbed the console phone. Dead. Rourke pointed to the monitor screens. Look. Down the corridor, several doors began to slide open. Not wide, just an inch. Just enough to signal that someone was testing the locks. Someone was waiting. Then over the speakers, the imposter's voice returned, calm, steady, almost casual. You're chasing the wrong escape. Ruiz whispered. What does that mean? The voice continued. You're looking at the prisoners. A pause. You should be looking at the staff. Rourke's eyes narrowed. He used an ID badge to get through checkpoints. Ruiz nodded. He knew all the codes. Kareem whispered. He walked right in. Rourke finished the thought. Because he had access from someone who works here. A sickening realization washed through the room. This wasn't just a breach. It was an inside operation. Ruiz steadied herself. We need to move. Now. We find Ward before he becomes number 4. But just as they stepped out of the operations hub, the alarm changed. A new siren erupted. High-pitched, urgent. The kind used only for one event. A confirmed internal fatality. Kareem gasped. No, please, no. Ruiz ran. Rourke followed. They reached the intersection leading to the medical wing, where the alarm originated. As they turned the corner, they saw it. A body lying in the hallway. Not an inmate. A guard. Face pale. Uniform torn. Eyes wide open. A single clean mark across the neck. The same signature as Hale's. /impossibility. Pinned to the guard's chest was another note. Rourke picked it up with shaking fingers. 7 left. Ruiz closed her eyes in horror. Kareem whispered, He's inside the staff sections? How? How does he know everything? Rourke stared at the note. He knows because he planned this for a long time. He turned to Ruiz. Elena, we're not just dealing with a killer. He swallowed. We're dealing with someone who has studied every weakness in this prison for years. Ruiz's voice trembled. But why target the 10? They're ghosts. Their cases are sealed. Their crimes are erased from public record. Rourke looked down the hallway, where darkness awaited them. He's not killing them because of who they are, he said slowly. He's killing them because of what they know. The emergency lights flickered again, and then a scream, a human scream, echoing from deep within the facility. Another inmate, another of the 10. It was already beginning. Rourke drew his weapon. We need to move. Now. Ruiz nodded, face pale but determined. They ran toward the sound, not knowing that what waited for them in the next corridor would rip the entire investigation open and reveal the first piece of the secret the 10 were dying for. The storm over the Rockies had rolled in overnight, swallowing the sky in a heavy blanket of steel-colored clouds. By dawn, ADX Florence looked less like a prison and more like a concrete iceberg lodged in the middle of the snow-choked desert. The compound was silent, still, and locked in a cold so sharp it felt carved. But inside the special security wing, silence was a lie. It was 4:17 a.m., the hour when the prison was at its quietest, and therefore the hour when every guard felt the most uneasy, the hour when the men in the most secure cells, behind triple-reinforced steel doors, were the most awake, the hour when rumors spread through the building like electrical currents. Rumors about the list that had already pushed one guard into early retirement, the list hidden inside a sealed incident file that no one was supposed to read, the list that Special Investigations Officer Mara Keating now carried in the inside pocket of her uniform jacket, pressing against her ribs like a burning secret. It contained 10 names, 10 inmates housed in the deepest part of ADX Florence, labeled with a single chilling phrase. High priority threat, potential coordinated activity. Except these men were in permanent isolation. Concrete walls, heavy steel, zero contact. Coordinated activity should have been impossible. Yet 2 days earlier, an envelope had slipped into the mailroom. No return address. No fingerprints. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in 10 handwritten numbers. A coded list. When decoded, it matched the inmate identification numbers on Keating's list exactly. That was the moment everything changed. Now she walked down Range C-14, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor, her breath forming faint clouds in the cold air. A flickering security light cast long, warped shadows that crawled across the walls. Behind each door was one of the inmates from the list, men convicted of orchestrated financial crimes, large-scale trafficking networks, violent multi-state conspiracies, and complex, coordinated criminal operations. Dangerous men, brilliant men, all now sealed away where they could touch nothing. Yet someone on the outside had reached out to them, and someone inside the prison had helped. Keating stopped at cell C 14-07. The door was as plain and unmarked as any other. No scratches, no dents, no signs that the man inside possessed the kind of mind that once built a criminal network so efficient federal analysts were still studying it years later. His name, his identity, was one of many sealed under federal anonymity protocols for high-risk inmates. But the guard simply called him the broker. Keating inhaled, held the breath, then moved on. She wasn't here to talk, not yet. She was here to confirm the pattern the warden refused to acknowledge. The coded message didn't stop at matching inmate numbers. Each number was paired with a timestamp. 10 different times, 10 different days, 10 different events inside the prison. Events that no officer had connected until now. One inmate had refused his meal on one of those exact days. Another had requested a new pencil, then snapped it in half and flushed it. Another had pressed his emergency call button, then said nothing. Another had spent precisely 2 minutes standing completely still in the center of his cell. One had torn his bedsheet into strips and retied them with oddly specific knots. Individually, these were meaningless, harmless, bizarre but harmless. Together, they formed a pattern, a countdown. Keating froze when she reached cell C 14-10. The window slot was open. That should never happen at 4:17 in the morning. She approached slowly, every instinct sharpening. The slot was only 4 inches tall, just wide enough to pass a meal tray, but its position, open, meant someone had violated protocol. Her pulse quickened. She leaned slightly, peering inside. The cell was dark, still, quiet. Then a voice drifted from the shadows, smooth and controlled. "You're early." Her hand tensed near the radio on her belt. "You're not supposed to be awake," she said. A faint breath of laughter. "No one sleeps in a place like this." Keating recognized him immediately. Inmate 9, the one the guards called the Ghost, barely spoke, never made trouble. A man whose silence made him more unsettling than any outburst ever could. She steadied herself. "The slot," she said. "Why is it open?" A pause. "You tell me." 3 words. Calm. Perfectly measured. Keating scanned the edges of the door. There were no scratches. No sign of tampering. "It wasn't open during the last round," she said quietly. "Who unlocked it?" From the darkness, she saw the faint outline of a smile. "You already know." Her throat tightened. Because she did know. The only way that slot could be open was if an officer had opened it. An officer who had access to the list. Keating stepped back. The hallway suddenly felt colder, more constricting. Before she could move, a burst of static crackled through her radio. "Keating, respond. We've got an emergency. East Wing control room. Now." Her jaw clenched. The East Wing control room was where the prison security master panel was located. If something happened there, anything, it could affect the entire facility. She sprinted. Her boots echoed to the corridor as she moved from range C 14 into the main artery of the secure housing unit. Red emergency lights began strobing overhead, throwing the walls into jagged, alternating shadows. She slammed her hand against the intercom panel. "Keating to East Wing, status." All she heard was distant shouting, then a loud metallic crash. Another voice came through, breathless. Someone accessed the security grid. We're locked out of the cameras for C-Wing. Keating swore under her breath. C-Wing housed all 10 men on the list. She ran harder, turning the last corner into the East Wing. A guard waved her over. Panic etched across his face. "It's bad," he said. "Really bad." "What happened?" He pointed at the master panel screen. Red text pulsed across it. "Unauthorized access. System defragmentation initiated." Keating's stomach dropped. Someone was rewriting the grid. "Shut it down," she shouted. "We can't." "The commands aren't coming from here. They're internal. Internal. Inside the prison. Inside C-Wing." A second guard hurried over. "We traced the first override to cell C 14-02. Keating's head snapped up. "Inmate 2. The guard nodded. The inmate the staff called a strategist, a man whose criminal history was built on complex digital infiltration, communication webs, and coded directives. He wasn't supposed to have access to anything that could be turned into a tool, not even a pen with a metal spring. "How could he?" she started. But then she saw it. A sequence of numbers flashing on the security panel. repeating, cycling. The same numbers from the mailroom envelope for 17, for 23, for 31, for 38, for 42, for 49, for 53, for 59, 504, 511. A countdown. The next event was minutes away. Keating felt her breath tighten. "They're signaling each other," she said. 10 men, 10 signals, 10 steps. The guard shook his head. "Impossible. They're in total isolation." "That's what we thought," Keating said. "But they've been communicating in ways we never detected. Routines, small actions, tiny gestures, patterns." The panel flashed again. Another message appeared. Step 9 initiated. Keating looked at the timestamp. 4:59. Inmate 9. The ghost. The man with the open slot. The next timestamp, 5:04, belonged to the final inmate. Inmate 10. The broker. The one whose mind had once connected dozens of criminals across multiple states without ever being in the same city. The one who saw Keating had stood outside just minutes ago. "We need to get to C Wing," she said. "Now." The guard scrambled behind her as she ran. The hallways blurred past in streaks of gray concrete and red emergency lights. The air grew colder the closer they got to the secure housing unit, as if the building itself knew something was unraveling from the inside. When they reached C Wing, everything was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that feels staged. They stepped into range C-14 cautiously. Each door stood still. Every window slit was dark. Keating moved towards cell C-14-10. "Inmate 10, she whispered. "It's 5:04. She reached the slot, lifted the outer hatch, and froze. The cell was empty. Not broken. Not damaged. Just empty. As if he had dissolved into the air. Her pulse slammed at her ears. "This is impossible." Behind her, a guard spoke, voice trembling. "Look." He pointed to the wall beside the door. A series of numbers had been written on the concrete in pencil. Light, barely visible, but unmistakably deliberate. The same coded sequence. Except now there was an 11th number, 517. Keating stared at it, the realization hitting her like ice. "This isn't a countdown," she whispered. "It's a schedule." "For what?" a guard asked. Keating's eyes lifted toward the overhead ventilation shaft. It was slightly ajar. A soft draft of cold air whispered down from it. And then she understood. The 10 men weren't working together to escape. They were positioning her, step by step, signal by signal. Every event, every timestamp, every coded gesture was designed to bring her here. At exactly 5:17, the moment her radio crackled with a new message. "Keating, are you there? We found something in the broker's cell. A note. It has your name on it." She swallowed hard. "What does it say?" The reply came slowly, shaken. It says, "Check the ventilation." Keating stepped back, heart pounding, staring at the dark opening above her. Inside the shaft, something shifted. A faint metallic scrape. Something or someone. Then a whisper drifted out, soft and echoing. "You're right on time." And the lights went out.